Hey everybody, this is Mike with Crooked Crow Crafting. Today I'm going to show you how I built my Imperial Bastion. It's the same dimensions as the original released by Games Workshop. In the description, I'll put links to the reference photos and diagrams that I used. Also, with the help of the purple side, I cheated a little bit and used my 3D printer to enhance the detail on this build. I'll also link to the paints I used for those pieces if you're interested. One thing I did notice about this build is when I transported it in my car, it started to swell a little bit, especially on the bottom. So I ended up drilling a hole through the bottom and through the middle piece so it wasn't airtight. It's a little bit long build because there's a lot of steps involved, but I hope you make it to the end. Please like and subscribe. Thanks. Here are some finished photos. Notice the 3D prints that I used on this model. These are the reference photos I used to construct the model. I'll put links to the diagrams with the measurements in the comments. I did convert all the measurements to metric for the build. I found it much easier to build in metric. I started by cutting the basic shapes out of chipboard. This is the top section I'm working on. I'm using super glue and an accelerator to assemble everything. If you have seen some of my other videos, you will recognize the accelerator in the orange top bottle. No spray accelerator for me. It just wastes too much product. Each vertical piece was measured and cut individually for a perfect fit. Well, good enough anyway. The edge of the desk made gluing this up easy. I'm checking the fit of the bottom of the top section and gluing it together. It's time for some more vertical wall pieces. I had to think about the assembly as the inside would not be accessible once everything was glued up. Here I'm gluing up the vertical wall pieces. I use a scrap piece of chipboard to smooth out the super glue. Top section is coming together. All done with the top, now to start on the base. Someone was nice enough to make a 3D door STL file, and it looks great. I'm pointing out the ledge on the diagram that I'm trying to duplicate. This ended up being the location that I attached the angled wall pieces to in order to complete the bottom piece. A little happy accident. This is a printout of the reference diagram that I glued to the chipboard with 3M77 spray glue. I've attached the first wall section to the top of the base. You can see the support piece I glued in that helps keep the wall perpendicular to the top. The front and back wall pieces will have doors. The side pieces have an indentation with vents. I had to make the supports different for the side pieces to allow for the indentation. The support pieces were just scraps of chipboard that I had laying around. I'm using the 90-degree ruler to make sure everything stays square. You can see the top piece is bowing a little. This is before the corners were glued. I used a container of Mod Podge to hold down the bottom piece while tacking the corners together. This eliminated the bowing and ensured the top was level. The corners are now glued the rest of the way. Time to check how everything looks. It took some thinking to figure out how to mark and cut all the angled walls on the bottom piece. Some of my cutting was done off screen, so I didn't include that boring video. That looks okay. This is how it looks after a few pieces are glued in. Now I need to mark, cut, and glue the other angled walls. Only a few more pieces to fit. Here's some more detail of the gluing process. All of the major pieces of the bottom are done. Now I'm making the ledge around the bottom. I found a 3D print of the small details in this area that I'll add later. It was just a matter of marking, cutting, and gluing all the ledges. What I'm doing here is sealing off all the raw chipboard edges with superglue. This strengthens the chipboard edges and protects from damage. I did this to the entire structure. Now I had to figure out how to make the indentations on the side walls. After some contemplation and measuring, I made these sidewalls and glued them in at an angle that matches the angle of the indentation. Some more crazy measuring and voila, a piece for the inside. And now an angled piece to finish. I'm adding some foam to simulate the way the bastion looks in the reference photo. Here's how I cut to fit. Foam-safe super glue is used to adhere the foam. I used more foam to make a ledge around the bastion. I'm showing how I was able to transfer the line around the piece. I cut the corner pieces at an angle to ensure they fit flush. And it's all done. Here I'm cutting window screen to simulate the metal grating on the top floor of the bastion. I like window screen as opposed to granny grating because I think it looks more to scale. I glued this down by painting Elmer's glue on the rooftop. You can never have enough foam. I'm still adding some to duplicate the look of the original. I've been working off camera for a bit and came up with these for the weapons ports. This is a piece I've already cut. Now to cut the rest. Another weapon port ready for gluing. I also printed more 3D files for the turret and weapons. There's a great bastion on the purple site that you can print. I just used some of the parts. The turrets do rotate and the weapons move. This is how I made the turrets rotate. I used chipboard with a slot and glued them in using a spacer to ensure enough room for the pivot. Now I'm positioning some printed pieces for the top of the bastion. You can see I started to cut some thin chipboard to simulate metal edging around the grating. The thin chipboard came from some random food boxes in the kitchen. I'm adding the finishing pieces of chipboard. All the edging is done. I'm using color changing spackle to fill in any cracks in the bastion. I also used a clay tool to clean up the excess. I did a lot more filling off camera. Spackle hides a lot of the rough spots. I'm ready to add the banding around the bastion, and I'll use some more chipboard from the kitchen. It's time to install some rivets. I found these blingy things at the Dollar Tree and they work great. Beats punching them out of cardboard, and they look great after priming and painting. The adhesive that comes with the gems is not good enough for crafting, so I use super glue to attach them. All the banding and rivets have been installed. Here are some of the 3D printed bits that I'll use on the bastion. Mod Podge and black paint time. Everything is primed and ready to paint. Turrets are painted. Yes, all the barrels have been drilled. Laser turret on the front. The door is completed also. Did you see that? Now we are base coated with a rattle can flat green. Notice the greebles in the top right, all primed black. There are some other small printed pieces on the left. They are going on next. I'm going to use Aleene's tacky glue for this. It will give me time to reposition the pieces. I'm placing the bastion on the table to make sure the small pieces are level with the base. All the little support pieces are glued on. The fun part begins, painting the bastion. I've already given it a heavy dry brush of ivy green. Can't see it, but this is a snow white for lightening the next coat. Notice on the left my homemade dry brush palette. The baking paper also works as a good dry brush palette and for testing prior to application. I'm trying to stay out of the deep corners and only hit the high spots. A little while later, and this is what it looks like. Now a little yellow in the green for the next coat. You can see the different shades of green on the paper palette and on the napkin. Ivy green and snow white, ivy green, snow white, and yellow. After looking at the reference photo, I noticed there was some gray tones, so I'm mixing elephant gray and true blue to dry brush. This is a look at all the past colors and the gray. Here's everything I've painted and glued on. Time for some shading. I've already used Agrax Earthshade on the bastion, and I'm showing you where I applied it. I'm continuing to apply the Agrax Earthshade all around the model. Every little nook and cranny receives some. This is the final effect. You can see the difference between the two sides, one shaded and one not. I've added some Seraphim sepia to the grading on top. I wanted the bottom of the bastion to have a little mud splashed around, so I mixed some cafe au lait and burnt umber. And yes, I'm painting mud on that nicely painted door.